Ryan, call me. My phone's ringing like you're a GM, okay? Hello?
Yeah. This is the GM.
How can I help you?
I really don't know.
I didn't explain the bid.
No, you didn't. You just said that like you're a GM.
No.
I just said, all right. Welcome into Sports Bluff, guys. We are bluffing our way through the free agency. It's kicked off, buddy. It is here. There's a lot of them. We're going to cipher through them. We're going to see the good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones, the ones that make us jump up and down, which I don't know if there's been any today that made me jump up and down.
No.
Maybe side to side.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a minor hop, like hopscotch, but not
do a jig. Did any of them make you do a jig today?
No, not really. I was happy my team got a tackle. That made me do, but that wasn't a jig. That was more of like a ooh.
They didn't get a tackle in the Super Bowl.
No, didn't have any there. They got a couple tackles. You know who got tackled the most in that game? Patrick Mahomes. Actually.
A lot of tackles. You know,
it's funny, just to let people behind the curtain a little bit. Normally, we record the show Sunday nights, but as we've entered the offseason, we've said, hey, let's swap to, Monday nights, just be easier in news. Good thing we did that this week, because all of the news dropped today when teams were allowed to make all these deals in Tampa. Ooh. And we got a lot of shocking moves. We're going to touch on all the biggest ones. And at the end of the game, we're going to obviously play a game called Hold 'em or Fold 'em, where we kind of go rapid fire through some of the free agency moves and what we think about them.
Well, Tom Brady has somehow landed Geno Smith at the Raiders. They have sent Geno Smith in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick. Smith was wanting a contract extension. The Seahawks just couldn't come up with an agreement on him, so he reunites with Pete Carroll at the Las Vegas Raiders, the team that is seemingly rebuilding, but yet you look at them and then you think, well, it's not half bad. I mean, it's not the greatest, but they could be in a worse position. They got a lot of old-timers there, but a lot of maturity in the locker rooms. Question to you. Do you like this move for the Raiders, yes or no?
I do like this move from the Raiders because it goes back to the point, for me, where it's all about adding legitimacy to this franchise. It's letting everyone know that this is a grown-up organization once again. Ultimately, the Raiders needed a quarterback. They couldn't go into the season with Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew if they wanted to be competitive at all on any level. And we were intrigued by the notion of them bringing in Pete Carroll. As you mentioned, Tom Brady. Brady's behind the controls. He's running this thing. It's interesting to see how he's going to work it, who he's going to bring in. And we said it when we did our Pete Carroll topic. This is about adding legitimacy back to the organization, back to the franchise, just giving you a stable foundation. That's what we said Pete Carroll was. Bringing in Geno Smith, that's more than a stable foundation. I've said in the past, I thought it was time for the Seahawks to, start thinking about the future. But Geno is a reliable quarterback. You say, like you're not sure, but he can win you football games. I mean, the Seahawks were on the cusp of playoff contention each year with him.
Yeah, you just said stable foundation. I don't know if I'd say stable. A little shaky at times, but foundation nonetheless.
Yeah, but he's a reliable quarterback, for sure. He's far superior than Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew.
Well, yeah.
Like, he can actually compete.
Agree.
He can win games. You could, putting the rest of the roster aside, assume you had a good roster in Geno Smith at quarterback, you could make the playoffs. Before we continue with the video, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Tell your friends about it. We're trying to grow this channel. Two idiots covering one sport. Subscribe so you feel better about your sports takes. Back to the video. I think Geno Smith has gotten knocked a little bit because of the poor offensive line play in Seattle. Like, he really didn't get a lot of help. He was running for his life. He was still making things happen. But this is just the Raiders getting their head above water, saying that, hey, we are rebuilding, but this is year one of the rebuild, and we want to compete. We don't want to win 4 games. We want to win 7 or 8. And honestly, they're on a path to do this. This is just stability, and that's what they needed most. The other thing it tells me, Ryan, and I'll throw it to you, this is also an indication that they didn't like any of the quarterbacks in the draft. Obviously, they probably weren't in a position to get Cam Ward, so putting him aside, this tells me they didn't really like Shedeur Sanders or any of the other options, or maybe they would have taken one or tried to move up and get one in the first round. They want a lockdown quarterback right now.
Do you blame them not liking any of the quarterbacks coming out of the draft?
No, I don't. I'm not a big fan.
None of them just wow me,
Cam Ward's the only one I would really take a chance. And just fair warning, I have not really dug into the tape on those guys yet, so I will, and we'll talk about it. But at a glance from what I've seen, Cam Ward's the only one I would take a flyer on.
Yeah, probably so. But no, you're absolutely right when you mention stability. This is what the team is shooting for, and this is what they're building. It's stability. I know there's supposedly some limitations in Tom Brady's like ownership and everything about how much he can really be involved and all that good stuff. Everybody knows that he's getting the final call at the end of the day. Like, hey, Tom, what do you think? Like, they just hold up a piece of paper, yay or nay, and he's just like, that one. You know, that's what they do.
Well, Mark Davis has said as such. He said that they've had such a bad run of coaches.
Yeah.
You know, they fired multiple coaches. He's basically said, without saying it, that he's turning over the keys of the football organization to Tom Brady.
Now, who's he giving the keys to the barbershop to?
I don't know, but I would throw those away if you get your hands on them.
So far.
Go to a different barber.
Yeah, go to some river somewhere and just toss them. Like, just get rid of them. But stability is what they're shooting for. And I think that at the end of the day, when you look at all these pieces they're bringing in, they're not bringing in a Super Bowl contending team. You know, that's not their intentions, I don't believe. I don't think they're trying to fool anybody. They're trying to bring into the locker room a team atmosphere, which has been lacking from the Raiders for a long time.
No, I agree with that. The question then, how much of an addition do you think Geno Smith is? Because obviously before this, we were saying maybe if they could win 5 games, this is a big task. Now, Geno Smith, you've got Brock Bowers, you've got some pieces. Like, do you think this is a team that could contend for 7 wins? I know the roster's not incredible, but it's not terrible. Like, they have some pieces. Does this addition alone, or combine this addition with Pete Carroll, does this put them as a fringe playoff contender?
I mean, it's a hard division, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just hard. So I'm not going to go that far yet. I think that Geno and Pete Carroll and all that, they'll wind up doing more for the future of the Raiders than they will the current Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Like, they will build something to be built upon in the future, because right now it's just a bunch of rubble.
Okay, that's fair. Well, so if you were a Raiders fan and you see this move and you're trying
I
to
would be depressed.
You would be depressed about Geno Smith when you were having Aiden O'Connell?
I'm a Raiders fan. I've been depressed for a long time.
Okay, so but put that aside. If you could, take some SSRIs and get that depression knocked away.
All right.
How just this move alone, looking at it, how much do you think this improves the season? Where do you think are realistic expectations for the team?
Yeah, if let's make it easy, because we both know that college wasn't our thing. So 1 through 10, all right. If I was at a 4 before, I'm probably at a 5.5. That's kind of where this needle has moved me.
I'm surprised. You're lower. I think this is a great move for them. I think
it's a great move, but I don't think it really changes much of anything as far as the outcome of the season. Now, it maybe a couple of more wins,
right?
But I don't think we're talking about playoff contention here. Like,
probably not, no. But I think it's a very big difference between a team with Aiden O'Connell, where you're going to be drafting in the top 5 or 6, to a team that's going to be in competitive games in the AFC West.
Well, when I saw the news break, let me just reenact how I perceived it. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Oh. That was it. That's just kind of how I felt about it. Like, it didn't really just stand off the page to me, or is that an expression? I don't think so.
Stand off the page, maybe?
It didn't stand off the page to me.
Well, we'll talk about the other side. When I saw the news, my main reaction was looking at it from the Seattle side. Like,
I'm more interested in that.
Yeah, okay. And we'll get to that later in the episode. So
it's hard for me to be interested about anything at the Raiders. It's just, they got a lot to show before I can start throwing my hat in the ring and feeling excited. And then maybe moving that needle a little past 6.
I agree with that. I think, end of the day, if you're a Raiders fan, the stability, the foundation should be something to be excited about. It's sad because that is a low bar, but over the past decade plus, like having Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, it's such an upgrade over what you've been dealing with.
Well, the Steelers have finally gained a credible wide receiver, someone who won't let them down as much as George Pickens has in the past. DK Metcalf. He's now a Steeler. He's going to be in the black and yellow. Seahawks obviously send DK Metcalf over to the Steelers. They sent him in exchange for a 2025 second-round pick, and the Steelers have also extended Metcalf, signing him to a 5-year, $150 million contract. Are you surprised the Steelers made this move?
I kind of am, actually, because this is a move that the Steelers don't often make. Like, the Steelers are not one of those teams that goes out and signs, big market
studs.
Wide receivers. Yeah, studs, exactly. Yeah. They draft and develop their guys in-house and extend them, TJ Watt, stuff like that. Like, they will pay their in-house players, they don't usually go and make a splash on the free agency market. And when they do, they don't do it at wide receiver. I wasn't surprised to see when it came out a couple days ago that Metcalf wanted a trade from Seattle. That didn't surprise me. It felt like it had kind of run his course there. I still think he's a very good receiver, and I'll be interested to see if you agree with me here. I feel like he's been underutilized at Seattle the past few years. I don't think that's him. I just don't think that the Seahawks have really used him to his full potential. I don't feel like they're getting him the ball enough. There are creative ways to get the ball to your playmakers, and a lot of times it feels like it's a 50-50 ball or bust, and he wasn't as crucial a part to the offense as I thought he should have been.
Yeah, he wasn't utilized to the best of his ability, and you could see the frustration play out on the field. He would get upset, and
of course
he's one of those guys that he wears the emotions on his sleeve a lot because that's what top level content or top level contenders do. And plus, JSN has really taken over because he just fit with Geno's scheme the best. Yeah. He was that slot guy, and it just worked. And so JSN wound up, every week I could play him in fantasy football, and I knew he was going to get more points than any other receiver on that team.
Yeah, he's an awesome player.
He's a great player.
And since he's become that primary target, that's why I think it made sense Metcalf wanted out. If you would have told me you were only going to get a second-round pick for him, I actually think that's a little low. I think that's a deal for the Steelers. I think the reason that happens is because of the contract. It's anytime you have to trade for a player, and after you trade for him, you're going to have to immediately give them a contract, the price goes down. Because it's like, I'm not just trading for the player, I'm trading for him, and I'm giving him a giant contract. But this is something the Steelers don't normally do, and I hope this video is not outdated by the time it comes out, but my question is, do you think this is basically a signal to the rest of the league that they're going for Aaron Rodgers at quarterback? Because I can't imagine you go and get DK Metcalf unless you think you have someone that can deliver the ball. Obviously, they don't have a lot of faith in George Pickens. They might be trading him. He's a handful. He's got his own issues, whatever. It seems to be a recurring thing with Steelers wide receivers. But I don't think you go and give up a second-round pick and give a $150 million contract to a wide receiver unless you are pretty certain about your ability to utilize him and his impact on the franchise.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it did make me scratch my head when I first saw it, because I'm like, but why? That was my first initial reaction, was like, well, who's throwing him the ball? Obviously, you lose, a guy we'll talk about in just a second with Justin Fields. And so now you got, Russ?
Who they're probably not bringing back, I would imagine. I think if they were bringing Russ back, they would have done it by now. Probably
so. So, okay, walk that narrative out then. They get Aaron Rodgers. Do you think they have a shot now? Because we saw the whole hype build between Rodgers and Adams, and that fluttered out pretty quick. So, do you think this changes anything?
When you say if it is Rodgers, do I think they have a shot? What do you mean by a shot?
Playoff, second round in the playoffs.
Yeah, I do. Okay. Because honestly, if you go and watch the Aaron Rodgers tape from the last 5 games of last year, last 5 games with the Jets, he's not bad. He is not Aaron Rodgers that he used to be. He's still a little, unstable in the pocket. He's still worried about his protection. His leg, obviously, he can't move like he once did. But when I went and watched the snaps he took the last couple games of the season, I didn't, because nobody was watching the Jets at that point. They were done. I went back and watched after the season, all of his snaps, in those last few games. And I didn't come away going, oh, Aaron Rodgers is the problem. The Jets were a disaster from the get-go. It is the Jets. I don't think Rodgers, personality helped that. I actually think this is one of those situations that could work. Now, am I saying they're going to be a legit playoff contender that could go beat the Chiefs or the Bills? No, but I think Rodgers with Mike Tomlin, maybe that keeps some of the craziness of Aaron Rodgers down. Mike Tomlin has a hold on the locker room. In the Jets, the inmates were running the asylum. Nobody knew who was in charge after they fired Robert Saleh. Mike Tomlin has an iron fist on this franchise, on this organization. I think if you add Aaron Rodgers, you give him DK Metcalf and a solid run game with that defense, I think you absolutely could credibly contend in a playoff game, because that's really what they were missing. The defense is all right, but when they got blown out by Baltimore, it's been the same thing year after year. They just don't have a quarterback they can rely on. And even though Rodgers isn't who he used to be, I still think he's a massive improvement over really everything they've had since the latter years of Big Ben.
You said if they had a good running game too. Well, they just lost their running back, so
willingly,
like who is going to fill that void? Because
I'm not really worried about that. I think they'll find, like running backs, they weren't in a position where they wanted to pay Najee Harris. They felt like they could get Najee's level of production from someone for cheaper.
I mean, they may could get out of Jalen Warren.
Yeah, perhaps.
The void to fill with Najee is not that great and vast, but it is something that you have to pay attention to because Aaron Rodgers needs a running back who can carry a good amount of the load. Not all of it. He can still sling the ball. I get that. But he needs somebody to, let that defense respect the run. So I'm gonna be looking into the Steelers and see who they get at running back, or if they just run with Warren, maybe, possibly. I have a feeling they signed somebody.
Well, this is also a really deep running back draft class too. So they could get someone in the 3rd, 4th round that's a solid, reliable role player.
That is definitely true. It's going to be fun to see how it shakes out, but I do think that when you add DK to a team, the team is elevated. He's that type of player. He is a top 10 wide receiver when he's utilized to be one.
Well, especially because we saw it later in the year, you couldn't count on George Pickens. Like he was so volatile. He's, kind of a diva. He is unreliable. Looks like he didn't want to be out there half the time. So just having the veteran presence, the physicality of DK Metcalf really matches with the Steelers too.
It's really all going to come down to who is slinging the ball to DK this season.
So the question there, if they don't get Rodgers, is this kind of a weird trade? Like, if they don't end up with Rodgers, the fact that they did this is kind of bizarre to me.
Is DK a top 10 wide receiver at the end of this year with Russell Westbrook at quarterback?
Well, Russell Westbrook, I probably not. I would
Can you
say
tell
he's
I've been betting NBA too much?
Yeah.
Russell Wilson at quarterback.
No, I don't think so.
Russell Westbrook may be better at quarterback at this point. I don't know.
Good point. I don't think Metcalf's a top 10 receiver regardless. I think that would be pushing it. But with Rodgers, I think
he has top 10 potential.
He has potential. But apparently, the Steelers were really interested in re-signing Justin Fields. So if they thought adding Justin Fields and bringing in Metcalf, like those two don't go together at all, in my opinion. I feel like that's interesting. So the jury's going to have to shake out on the quarterback situation before we can really judge this. But anytime you can get a player of Metcalf's talent, that's good for your offense. It's not a traditionally Steelers-like move.
Well, we've talked about Geno now. Let's talk about the replacement. Mr. Mono Boy himself, Sam Darnold, has been signed by the Seattle Seahawks. They're signing the previous Vikings quarterback to a 3-year, $100 million deal. Darnold is obviously 7 years younger than Geno. He had a great season last year with the Vikings before it kind of all crashed and burned. Did the Seahawks make the right move and get the right quarterback for their franchise?
I don't even know if Sam Darnold, if I could confidently say he's an upgrade over Geno Smith. Do you think he is? Because I know you're lower on Geno than I am. Do you think right now Sam Darnold's a better player than Geno? You do?
Yes.
Okay.
I think unequivocally. Like, I think he is that much better.
Okay.
I think if Geno's a 5 on the scale, Darnold's at least a 7.5. Like,
okay.
Substantially better.
I'm not 100% sure I agree with that, but
confidence in like longevity, like getting you to a big game, about the same.
Okay. So that's
but just on the field talent, I think Darnold is better.
All right. One thing I do love is the age situation. Like you said, like that's why I was saying last year, it's time for the Seahawks to start figuring out what they want to do post Geno, because like that clock is ticking, obviously.
Well,
here we are. It seems like Seattle actually wanted to keep Geno. They were talking just like a week ago saying, yeah, Geno's our guy. Geno obviously wanted more money, and I don't think Seattle was willing to do it. I think Seattle wanted to keep him around $30, $32 million.
We're going to take a quick time out just to make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Take a look down below. If you're not, just do it. It takes 5 seconds. I'm going to wait.
So he was at $25 million a year. I think they probably would have given him 30 or a little bit more than Mayfield maybe, but I don't think they wanted to go much higher than that, especially with his age. And he obviously wanted more, so they saw an opportunity, traded him. I don't think they made this trade unless they're confident they have an answer, so they felt good about Sam Darnold. I think this is the right move when you trade Geno, because there's not a great quarterback in this draft class, so you have to have someone under center. We know that. You have to have a quarterback in this league. Obviously, Sam Darnold is a reliable starting quarterback. Let me just kind of go on a tangent and break down what I like and dislike, and then you play off those thoughts. Sound good?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I like it The Seahawks offensive coordinator is Clint Kubiak, who was with the Saints. This is an offense that's tailor-made for Sam Darnold. This is the kind of offense he needs to play with. It's a progression-focused, go through your reads, deliver the ball on time, and then occasionally use your athleticism to make plays when necessary. But it's a very rhythm-based offense. They're going to run the football a ton. You've got Kenneth Walker, who's one of the best backs in the league when he stays healthy. I think you're going to see a lot of play action. A lot of run game, a lot of clock control and play action, boots, get Darnold in space that way. It's going to be the kind of offense that Darnold succeeded with the Vikings. That's why I like the move for the Seahawks. If you would have been putting Darnold in a, Chiefs-style offense, I think that would have been a disaster, But putting him with Kubiak, who runs kind of that 49er scheme, I love it. I think that's a smart move. The one thing that gives me trepidation is I just ultimately think that Sam Darnold is a limited quarterback. I don't think he's a playoff superstar. The Seahawks needed reliable quarterback play. They wanted to get younger. They wanted to plan for the post-Geno era. All that is a good thing. All that's smart. But Geno's been running around for his life back there because of the offensive line. And we saw what happened to Sam Darnold in the playoff game when Minnesota's line couldn't hold up against the Rams. That could be something to watch. I don't know if this ends up better or worse than it was for Geno. I don't blame the Seahawks for going this route. I think he should integrate into the system, but I don't think he's a superstar, and I don't think it's going to drastically increase the Seahawks. If they were here with Geno, I think best case scenario, they go here with Sam Darnold. If anything, I think it stays about the same.
Yeah, so it's net neutral to you. Like it's
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, no sweat off anybody's back. I don't know that I completely agree because I think that they are going to look at the inefficiencies on offense, like especially on the line, and they have to address some of that this offseason, whether it be through, more free agency, more just offseason signing, the draft, like whatever it is, they have to fix that. We all know that. So if they're able to do that, well, then I do think that you have an upgrade because I do think Sam Darnold's an upgrade at quarterback. If you can protect him, which you did not do successfully with Geno Smith, then you have a recipe for a better season than you did with Geno. Obviously, we know the run game is solid, and we know that Sam Darnold doesn't have to question whether or not he's going to have a good running back. The question becomes am I going to have time to throw the football?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's something they're going to have to shore up because Geno kept a lot of plays alive that I don't think Sam Darnold could. Like, really, if you really watch Geno's tape, that's why I think I'm a little higher on him than you are, is just there's just so many plays that break down where first look, you're like, Geno didn't, what's he doing? And then you watch it and you're like, well, he didn't have much of a choice. He's running for his life. His first read wasn't there and the play breaks down. I don't know if Darnold, well, actually, I do know. Darnold won't be able to function well if that's the case. If they can't protect him, operate from the run game, keep Walker healthy. Charbonnet is a solid number 2. He's stepped up when he's had to step in there for Walker. So that should be good. It's a good fit for Darnold. I don't know if the Seahawks were like jovial about getting him, but I think when the Geno thing came down, they realized they weren't going to sign him.
It's the best option.
It's the best option. And I agree with them. If they were looking at, hey, do we want to sign Geno to $35 million or we want to sign Darnold? I would much rather go with Darnold just because of the age thing. I get a longer runway and more time to figure out the quarterback situation long term. Do you think the Seahawks, as of right now, would you consider them a playoff threat? Because, they were right on the cusp with Geno. Do you think this makes them a better team? You do.
Yeah, if they fix the offensive line, then yes, it's a better team because of Sam Darnold. Now, they got to get some help at wide receiver now because they also lost DK.
I'm glad you brought that up because I completely whiffed on that. That is interesting.
They got JSN, but they
let Lockett go.
Yeah, Lockett. He's very old.
I know, but he was reliable for them.
He was. Yeah, who's some other available wide receivers? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't think there's really any left at this point.
Stephon Diggs,
Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Elijah Moore.
Yeah, so I'm glad you didn't know any of them.
Westbrook Ikahine.
Yeah, keep them going.
Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, okay.
Juju Smith-Schuster. But none of these guys are like, that's not going to fill the role.
There's nobody out there to fill the role of DK.
Right.
So let's just end that, right? And you just say JSN is now your number one because he can maintain that, I believe. But who are you going to get for your edge guy? Because JSN, I wouldn't take him out of the slot.
No, he has to play slot. He has to play slot. Yes.
He is a dynamic.
That's where the Seahawks fucked up originally. They didn't play him at slot that last year at Pete Carroll, and that's why he didn't do much.
He's one of the best slot players in the league.
If I was getting Sam Darnold, I would have prioritized keeping Metcalf. I don't know, maybe the relationship had run its course, but like getting Darnold and losing the weapons worries me.
Yeah, but could they afford it?
I don't know. I don't know.
That would be my question. Is like you're paying Sam Darnold $100 million. Could you afford DK at that point? I don't know.
I guess we'll see, but it's a new chapter in Seattle, that's for sure. And I do think they did the right thing given the way the situation broke down.
Fix the O-line, supplement the receivers. You got a better roster, Seattle. Congratulations. The Jets have locked down their next QB in the aftermath of the Aaron Rodgers saga. It's over. Everybody's happy. I'm sure everybody's happy. I am. I definitely am. Former Bears and Steelers quarterback Justin Fields is signing with the Jets on a 2-year, $40 million deal that includes $30 million in guaranteed. So, Justin Fields obviously went to the highest bidder. Do you think that's the right move for both Fields and the Jets?
So first off, on Justin Fields, yes, it's the right move because I don't blame him for going and getting paid. I'll be honest with you. I don't blame Justin Fields for wanting to leave Pittsburgh after what happened there. You know, the rumblings are Pittsburgh wanted to keep him, wanted to bring him back, but after he started the season, you know,
successfully,
yeah, after he started the season successfully. Now, we can debate what level of play, you know, his level of play was. Okay, that's fine, but they were winning games, and then he got benched, and they went to Russell Wilson. I'm not even debating whether that was the right or wrong call. I think it was probably actually the right call. It seemed like it worked out. I think Tomlin knows what he was doing. But clearly that left a bad taste in Justin Fields' mouth. He's like, hey, why would I come back? You know, like I started last year and you benched me. So why would I come back for you now? I'll go somewhere else that believes in me and is going to get, you know, pay me more. So Justin Fields doing the right thing. I love Aaron Glenn as the head coach of the Jets. I think he is a great leader. Obviously, he's a defensive guru. He cares about that franchise. He's going to, you know, hopefully mold that organization into a viable option and a real, you know, real team that people respect. The problem I have, Ryan, is I just am not a real believer in Justin Fields' talent. And maybe you'll disagree with me here.
You never have been.
I just don't think he's a quarterback. I don't think he's a starting NFL quarterback. Can he start and you win a few games and he manage? Okay, sure. But we saw in those games he started with the Steelers, things have to go right. Like for you to win, you have to have pretty good defense. And maybe the Jets will have that, but he's not going to go take the ball over and win the football game. I kind of push back on this idea like we're going to see another level to Justin Fields at this point. We saw what he was in Chicago. We saw what he was at Pittsburgh. Shocker, guys. That's what he's going to be at New York. So obviously that's better than no quarterback. When Aaron Rodgers left, they had to get somebody. I don't blame the Jets for doing this, but anybody who's expecting a Justin Fields renaissance or, you know, a career resurgence, I would pump the brakes on that. I think he's going to be what he has always been, and they're going to have to rely heavily on a dominant defense to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you literally took every word out of my mouth that I could have said about that because I feel the exact same way. Justin Fields has never wowed me. He's had games where, you know, they've been good games. They've been sometimes great games, but it's never been one of those ones where I'm like, oh, this guy could actually be a starting quarterback, a franchise guy.
Franchise guy, yeah.
You know, you see Jaden Daniels like the second game out and you're like, oh, that's him. Like He's that guy. Caleb Williams, same kind of for him as Justin Fields. You know, I just haven't seen much of franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams, you know?
And that's fair. Now, we had that conversation when it was at the time. It was like, should the, you know, Bears draft? We both said go draft Caleb Williams because we think we know who Fields is at that point. And the main concern for me with Fields, and I'm not trying to take away from his moment. This is great. I'm glad he went and got paid. I'm glad the Jets got an answer. Like,
I don't blame if you can make your bag, make it.
Like, absolutely. And I don't blame the Jets for doing this. Like, they had to have somebody. This is a good, you know, stopgap, maybe a year to 2 year answer. But Justin Fields, anyone who watches the tape, if they say anything else, they're lying to you. He does not go through his progressions and play quarterback. He doesn't. He is not snap 1 to 2 to 3 to check down. He is maybe one progression and run. That's what he is. He's an athlete. he has never been the kind of guy that's going to sit back and tear you up from the pocket. So I just think you have to know the limitations going in. Hopefully the Jets can build around that, but I see the offense continuing to struggle even though Fields is in there. The offense is probably going to be worse. I think Fields is a inferior starter to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's even in question.
Leadership has changed though, and so I'm just wondering that. Yeah, I think the talent level is definitely depleted because Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers, there's no debate, right?
Right. I mean, even at the age, yeah.
Rodgers on one Achilles will beat Justin Fields every single day. But maybe he can get in there and work with the quarterback's coach. I think I'm looking at Tanner Engstrand is the new offensive coordinator for the Jets. I don't know who he is. He helped the Lions, obviously, in the passing attack with Ben Johnson. So he's touched success. He's worked with Ben Johnson, the great Ben Johnson. So I have to think that it's probably an upgrade from what he was getting at the Steelers, maybe, because all the focus was on Russell. So I do believe that there's potential there for us to see an improved Justin Fields, but yet still not a franchise guy. I think, like you said, they're going to rely so heavy on this defense. They're going to build it up. They have a defensive guru, like you said, at head coach. Obviously, the plan is, let's be so good defensively, we keep it low scoring, let him maintain the game, and pretty much be the game manager. Let whoever run the football, Breece Hall, whoever it is, if he stays healthy, who knows? But I don't think we're going to see anything that's going to just blow our minds at the end of the season. We're not going to be sitting here at the end of 2025 and say, can you believe what Justin Fields did? Now, I hope we do.
It would be a shock.
If you're taking it to the bank, if you're going to play the odds in Vegas, I mean, it's 1 in a million, probably.
Yeah, I'm with you. But at least, it answers the question for now. We'll see. My main thing with the Jets is, can Aaron Glenn lock down the defense? Can he get that defense back to dominant levels like it was 2 years ago?
The season rides on that.
Yeah, it really does.
The former Green Bay Packers superstar wide receiver Davante Adams signs with the Los Angeles Rams on a 2-year, $46 million, $26 million guaranteed deal. Do you like this move by the Rams, Tristan?
This is a great move. This is the definition of just excellent GM work. This is the perfect example of a franchise that knows what it's doing. This is an organization that over and over and over again proves to you that they have things under control. When we were talking a week or two ago about the Matt Stafford thing, and you asked me where do I think he would end up, I said ultimately he's going to sign with the Rams because I can't imagine the Rams are stupid enough to let him walk out of the door. They got that done. They have the rocky road from time to time, not the ice cream. I'm talking about the salary cap and how they sign everybody, but they always figure it out. This is a great move. We know Puka Nacua is a superstar, right? He is an absolute superstar. He's a weapon. Yeah. One of the best receivers in the league. So fun to watch. Davante Adams is not in his prime anymore, okay? But he is still a solid number 2, and he can still have, get a lot of work done, especially in this offense. The Rams are in a win now mode. This is a push for the Super Bowl. They had Philly on the ropes. They were devastated they lost that game. They really thought they had them. This is the answer to Kupp. Anyone who is doubting it, Cooper Kupp is washed. He has been. That's why the Rams had to release him. There was never going to be a trade for Kupp. So the Rams were so reliant on Puka Nacua, he was really their only option. Now you have Nacua and Davante Adams on the field at the same time. Both can run similar routes. The way Sean McVay is going to attack defenses with these two on the field is going to be exceptional to watch. Even though Adams is not the superstar he used to be, he is still a really good player, and I think you're going to see the best year of the past 2 or 3 for Adams because he's finally in a situation that's going to benefit him, and Stafford's going to get him the ball. You can count on that.
Yeah, so you took away Kupp, who was the mature senior guy in the locker room, right? And you replace him with another senior guy who can still play football, So you've made a much improvement or a much better wide receiver position now for what this team needs. Cooper Kupp, like you said, was washed, and it was time to move on. So not only do you have Puka, a star wide receiver, one of the best in the league, paired with Davante Adams now, but you also have these other guys that people forget about, like Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. Jordan Whittington, we saw him have a few good games last year. Like, you got a really solid receiving core here now, and you have somebody at the likes of Davante Adams to help build these other guys up around him. So you still have that stability there with the mature senior type player, and now he can catch footballs. So I think ultimately when they knew that they were keeping Stafford, they said, all right, this is all chips are now in the center of the table. We're pushing for it one more time. We got to get this Super Bowl this year. And look, Les Snead is putting his hat in the ring with Brett Veach and all them. You know, he's like, hey, I'm a good GM too, guys. You forget? Like, I'm still good.
Well, remember that when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, they went all in, and then they had the one bad year, you know, where they had to basically pay out everybody. And since then, they've been Super Bowl contenders again. Like, their rebuild was literally one season, and they were back at it. Drafting Nakua, Jared Verse, like, they're building a really solid team with youth. And just imagine the opportunities Adams will open up for Nakua as well, or vice versa. You know, if you're the defense, you can only focus so much resources, you know, on receivers. They're going to have to focus on Nakua because he is the superstar, which is going to open Adams up more, or, you know, pick your poison. If you want to cover him on the outside, one of them is going to have less coverage than the other.
You make such a good point, because when Puka and Cooper were running to like top efficiency, right? If you looked at like fantasy or the stats at the end of the game, they both were very similar. They had a bunch of yards and a bunch of catches, you know? So when both of them were doing really good, they both succeeded. That's what you needed. Again, when Cooper when Cooper kind of lost his edge,
Cooper couldn't get any separation. That's right. Really what did him in. He could not separate.
What does that mean? Well, now you double up on Puka.
Exactly.
And you don't get passes there either. So where do you go, right? So Stafford was kind of boxed in. That's why you saw some of these guys like Tutu and those other guys, Robinson, step up a little bit, because that's the only place Stafford had to go. So now I think with Adams here, you know, he can still, whether or not, Adams doesn't need separation. He just needs the ball in the vicinity of where he's at, and he can take those big hands and get it and come down with it, you know? At least that's what we've seen before.
Yes, so I think he's still got that.
Yeah, I fully expect him. If I'm him, I am pumped. I'm ready to give it my all too, because this could be my last season, and boy, wouldn't you like to go out on a Super Bowl.
Well, the only thing missing on Davante Adams' resume is a Super Bowl. That's it. He's got a great career. That's the only thing missing. This gives him that opportunity. This is one of the best moves of free agency.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our favorite game.
Hold 'em, or fold 'em. Welcome to the NFL.
Hold 'em or fold 'em. Free agency style. Free agency edition. Maybe sounds a little bit better, but this is the game where I will ask Tristan several different free agency moves. He will then tell me hold them or fold them. Hold them, meaning that he loves it and would marry it. Fold them means out with the trash. You ready to play?
Let's jump right in. This is just a way for us to cover some of the other moves that we don't have time for a full segment on. Let's do it.
Nor do we have that much to say about them. After requesting a trade, Myles Garrett signs with the Cleveland Browns on a 4-year, $204.8 million with a $122.7 million guaranteed contract. Hold them or fold them?
Might be surprising you here. Fold them. Here's why. Obviously, Myles Garrett, best edge rusher in the league, star player. When a player wants out, giving them bags of cash is only going to solve it for a minute. Myles Garrett was unhappy with the franchise. He wanted out because he did not see a path to winning, and he wants to win, as he enters the home stretch of his career, the back leg of his prime. Obviously, they threw enough money in front of his face where he said, all right, fine, I'll take it. I'm telling you, Ryan, I can see this backfiring in a year or two. I could see us being in the exact same situation where in a year or two, he's like, hey, I want out. Please trade me. I know you don't normally trade a guy like Myles Garrett, but when you're the Browns and you're saddled with that Deshaun Watson contract and your franchise is rotting from the inside, this was the opportunity. This was your chance to offload a great player and get a ton of capital and free up cap space. You're not going to win whether he's there or not. I think this is a mistake for Cleveland.
Folding for me too, man. I'm not going to give you my answer on every one of them, but especially this one because I think it's a lose-lose on both sides. Like the organization's not going to go any further. It's going to get more in quote-unquote cap debt,
I'm surprised Garrett took it. I really am.
That's the most surprising thing to me. It's like, because you had the opportunity to go and be on a very successful team and possibly make a Super Bowl run, because you're not going to with Deshaun Watson and the Browns.
agreed. The only way this makes sense is if Garrett, this was always about money. I don't think it was, though, the way Garrett was talking. I think he really just didn't believe in the team, wanted to be on a winner. But if this whole time was just a ploy for him to get more money, then negate what I said, and then he got what he wanted. I don't think that's what this was, though.
Josh Allen got paid 6-year, $330 million, $55 million per year from signing. I saw the breakdown where he makes like $100 a second or something stupid like that. It's insane. They cut Von Miller, which is a $15 million dead cap hit. They signed Greg Rousseau. They signed Khalil Shakir to a 4-year extension worth up to $60 million with $32 million guaranteed. And they also signed wide receiver Joshua Palmer for 3 years, $36 million. Hold him or fold him, Tristan, on all that.
Gotta hold him. This is the Bills. I've been critical of Brandon Beane, but these are the right moves. First off, Josh Allen, not just a restructure. They ripped up the old contract, started fresh. Had to. He was underpaid. I think you're going to see a similar thing probably happen with Patrick Mahomes and some other guys in the league. Definitely, if not that, you're going to see some restructuring. Josh Allen got what he deserved. Cutting Von Miller, probably the biggest, not cutting him, signing Von Miller, probably the biggest mistake of Brandon Beane's tenure, for sure.
Cutting him?
Cutting him, saving
the
grace.
Best.
I didn't like the move when they made it. It felt desperate. It ultimately played out that way. You cut him now, you cut your losses. Signing Greg Rousseau is the move right here because you know me. I've been high on Rousseau for years. I was like, that guy's going to be a star. I think he's a great player. He's a foundational piece to that defense. Shakir, another guy, a really solid, reliable receiver. You get him for a good price. I'm a little intrigued by the Joshua Palmer thing.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to say about it. I'm not expecting much for him. I could look at that and say, maybe that's a little much, but you got to find an improvement somewhere on the offense because Cooper wasn't doing it last year. I think this is the Bills just, making smart moves like they usually do.
Joshua Palmer is that menu item at a fancy restaurant that you don't really know what it is, but when it gets there and you eat it and you're satisfied, you're like, wasn't bad. That's exactly where Joshua Palmer is for me. Let's move on because I agree that is definitely a hold'em for me as well. Go Bills. The Bears traded for your beloved Joe Thuney from Kansas City and center Drew Dahlman, 3-year, $42 million to fix up their O-line for Caleb Williams. Hold him or fold him?
Hold him, absolutely. You never know how an offensive coordinator is going to do as head coach. I've actually liked Ryan Poles, the GM for Chicago. The worst mistake he made was keeping Matt Eberflus last year. But Poles, he was one of Veach's guys. He came from Kansas City, was part of the Mahomes acquisition and all of that. Trading for Joe Thuney, a great move. Thuney's a little bit older. That's why Kansas City got rid of him because they decided to keep Trey Smith. I understand the move there. But the Bears have to get Caleb Williams protection. We saw him running for his life last year. I'm skeptical on what we see from Williams because I don't know if he's the kind of guy that will just stand in the pocket and deliver the football on time and through his progressions. But this is the first step to doing so. The Bears have a lot of money. They're trying to do it with a rookie quarterback. These are the moves you need to make. If you want to be successful, get the trenches right. We've seen it. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Offensive and defensive line. The Bears are doing that. These are smart moves.
Always comes down to the trenches. Your Kansas City Chiefs. Signed former 49ers offensive tackle Jalen Moore to 2-year, $21 million guaranteed deal to protect Mahomes' blind side.
Yes, sir.
They needed that. Chiefs also signed guard Trey Smith to a franchise tag, $23.4 million, probably working on a long-term deal there, and bring back Hollywood Brown 1 year up to $11 million, and linebacker Nick Bolton, 3 years, $45 million. A lot of money there. You holding it or you folding it?
Feel like it's getting repetitive. Maybe we'll have some folds later, but right now I'm holding it because this is a hold 'em. I like all these moves. When I saw the news of them trading Joe Thuney, I freaked out for a minute. Don't go back and read the text. I was like, what the hell are they doing? Then I had a second to catch my breath and look at it and was like, okay, it makes sense because we all thought that they wouldn't keep Trey Smith. We thought he was going to enter free agency. They did the right thing because Trey Smith's younger. They tagged him. They're probably going to work out a long-term deal. I would be lying if I said I have grinded Jalen Moore offensive tackle tape. PFF has him graded fairly well. I think this is a good move. After Ronnie Stanley signed back with the Ravens, I would rather have the youth and Moore. This is them, addressing left tackle. You've got Smith at right guard. You've got Humphreys at center. You've got Taylor at right tackle. The only question left for the Chiefs is left guard, which they think Suamatia or one of those guys they drafted can move into. Maybe Wanya Morris can play that position. So I like it. This is Brett Veach doing what he does, what's available to him. They're still going to probably take some people in the draft. even though I don't like the tackles. Hollywood Brown, love it. He got hurt. Most of the season was taken away from him. You were on this way before he got to Kansas City. He was starting to finally come into his own once he got to play. Bringing him back is great. And Nick Bolton, one of the best linebackers in the league, locking up the leader of the defense. These are all good moves. Brett Veach doing the usual.
Kind of no surprise there. Tampa Bay extends Chris Godwin's 3-year, $44 million guaranteed contract. They also sign Hassan Reddick to a 1-year, $12 million deal. Chris Godwin also got to keep in mind he's coming off that injury. ACL, MCL, he injured both. I don't remember which one was last, but he did both, and I think in the right knee. So is this a hold him or a fold him for you?
Definitely nervous with the Godwin injury, but I'm okay with them rolling the dice. I'm going to say hold him on Godwin.
He's a great slot receiver too.
He's a great receiver. We saw what he was able to do with Mike Evans. Obviously, getting up there in age. I don't know how I feel about this one. Initially, I'm okay with it. I could see this biting them if he's not able to return from that injury. Do you have his age off the top of your head?
29. He's 29 years old.
Signing a 29-year-old receiver to a 3-year, $44 million deal. I'm a little skeptical. I love Godwin, but I kind of talked myself into leaning fold him. But there's not a lot of options on the wide receiver market. Hassan Reddick, year $12 million, try to add some help. Okay.
Why not?
Nothing flashy. I think this is Tampa just trying to stabilize. So, I call. I'm not raising.
Yeah, Godwin had a great year up until the injury anyway, so it just worries me that it's a double injury, that scares me. But again, medicine's come a long way in the past few years with football, sports rehab, so I hope for the best for him. Tampa Bay needs him to play good football. The Chargers, they cut Joey Bosa. They bring back Khalil Mack on a 1-year, $18 million deal. They sign former Steelers running back Najee Harris to a 1-year deal up to $9.25 million. Hold him or fold him?
I'm going to do both. I'm going to hold him.
You can't do that.
Watch me.
Okay.
Cutting Joey Bosa. It's the right move. It sucks, but he is hurt all the time. He just doesn't play anymore. He's not the player he once was, never quite was the player that his brother Nick Bosa is. This is the right move. Yeah.
Hard living in the limelight of your brother.
Absolutely. The injuries are really what derailed Joey Bosa, though, because he was really good before the injuries started to stack up.
Sure.
Najee Harris, I like adding him because we know that Harbaugh is going to run the football, run. Najee Harris, not giving him too big a contract so he can come in and be, an element that can obviously take a lot of punishment, take a lot of hits, get a lot of carries. I think that'll work out. The one thing I'm a little skeptical on, and I lean fold on, is Khalil Mack. Not because I don't think he's a great player. I just wonder about the cap situation, bringing him back at his age on a 1-year, $18 million deal. Now, I'll just be honest, I don't have the cap situation in front of me. If getting rid of Mack would have taken a big cap hit, Chargers fans, let me know, then I'm okay with this. But if they could have moved on from Mack and saved that money, perhaps there's an argument to be made that would have been the right move, but nothing egregious here. These are all, relatively smart decisions.
Let me ask you this real quick, just on the running back thing, right? The running back room is now J.K. Dobbins, Najee Harris, Gus Edwards, and then you have Kamani Vidal, which a lot of people were kind of high up on coming out of the draft. So where do you see Najee fitting into this? Do you see him being the number 2 behind J.K. Dobbins, or do you see him and Gus kind of split that number 2 role? What do you think?
I feel like it's going to be a lot of rotation between those three and just kind of feeding the hot hand.
It's going to make fantasy awful for whatever running back it is, I believe.
It's like we saw last year, when injuries, pile up, it can affect the way they play. So I think this is just basically Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers covering their bases, making sure they have a reliable running game because their entire offense is built around that. You have to have it. I think this is, just a smart move. They've got enough money. It's not a big enough contract. It's a 1-year deal, stopgap, and you can draft someone. As you said, Vidal's young. We'll see what he can turn into. But this is just basically a good way to say you're getting yourself some depth at the position.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are trying to come off their wild roller coaster ride, and in efforts to do that, they signed wide receiver from the Commanders, Dyami Brown, to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Hold him or fold him?
I like Dyami Brown, but I do just kind of wonder about the way the Jaguars are allocating resources. I look at it and they kind of had to do something. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. The big fold him is the Gabe Davis decision last season when they gave him too big of a contract. Adding Brown alongside Thomas Jr., I think, is a good move. You've got Strange at tight end, so I'm going to lean hold them because they had to have some help. But, that offense is still a big question mark.
Yeah, I think I got to go hold him just because of Brown's talent, right? But I would go fold him on the Commander side if you're asking. I know you're not, but
that's a good point.
Why let him go? Like, he was a great number 2, man. Like, him and Terry were just, they were a dynamic duo. I think that's a bad move for the Commanders letting him go.
They assume Commanders, which we can go into this topic. We didn't have it on the script, but let's just throw it in there. The Commanders trading for Deebo Samuel. Let me throw it to you, Ryan. Hold him or fold him?
Oh, man. It's a hold him for me.
Really?
Yeah, because Deebo, okay, look, if you're going to get rid of Dyami Brown and you need a number 2 guy, like Terry is your dude. He is a fantastic wide receiver.
Yes.
And him and Daniels just have a connection that you can't deny, especially that deep ball. It's beautiful. But if you're going to get rid of Brown, if this was the plan, which, by the way, I would argue that you should have kept Brown for this type of price as a number 3. But Deebo is going to be a fantastic number 2 guy. He is that kind of gadget player. He can do everything. So I think this is an ultimate win for the Commanders. I just wish they would have kept Dyami, man. Like, I think he made himself a place on that team.
So I agree with you on Brown. I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm not stoked about the Deebo trade. I'm going to fold the Deebo trade from the Commanders' point of view because I think he's a gadget player. And
that's what I said.
I know. I'm skeptical on if the Commanders are going to use him in the proper way. I think his best days are behind him. We saw in the Super Bowl, again, a similar topic, he couldn't get any separation. Deebo Samuel was unable to do anything in that game against the Chiefs. I just don't look at him as a real dynamic receiver. I look at him as a, in the backfield running back playmaker. If they use him to that degree, that's fine. But you bring him in and lose Dyami Brown, who was starting to become a solid receiving threat. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work out for the better for Washington.
Micah Parsons is up for a contract extension, and Dallas continues to drag their old Jerry Jones feet as the price just keeps skyrocketing. It's going to cost over $40 million a year. Is Dallas really contemplating trading Parsons? I would like to think not, but shouldn't this deal already be done? Hold them or fold them? How they're just operating under this unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, this is an easy fold them in the way Dallas is handling this.
Do we expect anything less?
No.
My Lord.
No.
Come on.
We expect exactly this. This goes back to a conversation we had earlier in the episode talking about you pay your star players early. Every single team in the league, when they turn in a draft pick, they are praying he turns into half the player Micah Parsons is. You're praying that happens. Dallas has him. They extended Dak. They extended CeeDee Lamb. So now, and that's been the thing. People are like, no team has ever paid, quarterback, wide receiver, edge rusher, all 3 top of the market. I think the real decision, honestly, would have been I wouldn't have extended Dak, but if you were going to do that, I would have moved on from Lamb, re-signed Micah, and gone and gotten a wide receiver. You can get other really good receivers. I know Lamb's good. I'm not, downplaying his talent. I'm just saying you've only got so much cap space. They should have signed Micah Parsons the first moment they were able to, because it would have been cheaper. This is that same point. The more you let it go, just like we said with the Bengals and Chase, the more he's going to cost. And now you've put yourself in a situation after the Crosby and Garrett deals, it's going to be an astronomical price. You could have done what Philly does and get out ahead of it, get him for cheaper, and now you're in a pickle. If they trade Micah Parsons, it really is just a death blow to that franchise, because that is the type of player you do not trade. That is the type of player you want to retire wearing your uniform.
He's on the DNT list, the do not trade.
Right.
On any team.
Hey, Ryan, call me. And my phone's ringing like you're a GM. Okay. Hello?
Yeah. This is the GM.
How can I help you?
I really don't know.
I didn't explain the bid.
No, you didn't. You just said that like you're
No.
I just said, all right. You tell me the friends for so long because I just don't question them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. You're a GM calling the Cowboys about trading for Micah Parsons, okay?
Okay, I'm just a random GM.
From whatever team.
Inquire about Micah Parsons. Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Yeah. Hello, this is the Cowboys.
Hey, this is Random GM. I'm looking into getting me a good defensive player. You got any? I was heard about this Micah Parsons
Click.
boy.
That's how that conversation goes. We don't entertain it.
It really should go that way, right?
Fold them. Ridiculous.
But unfortunately, Jerry says, yeah, I got him. What are you going to give me for him?
Jerry's like, which one is he? Shoddy? Which one's Parsons?
All right, guys. Well, we've bluffed our way through the free agency frenzy. It is just now kicking off, man. This is the part of the year that I love. Like, I love the season, man. I love the Super Bowl, the playoffs, all that. Like, that's great. The playoffs is the greatest thing in sports entertainment, period, if you ask me. But, man, this part of the season for football junkies is just so it's just so engulfing, man. It takes over. And I just want to learn and all these moving parts. It's like a big chessboard.
It's because it's endless possibilities. Like every team is 0-0. They all have a good future ahead of them. And you're just imagining how things are going to play out. It's fun.
One honorable mention that I didn't see on the script, but Milton Williams at the Patriots.
Yes.
That is a huge move. And the Patriots in general have one of the best free agency grades right now because of all the moves that they've made under Mike Vrabel. And I think that, man, he is coming to play. Like, he's showing up. And I'm just saying, don't underestimate this Patriots team. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, no.
Nobody said that here on this show. But as far as, like, making strides, he's leaping, man.
No, it's funny you say that because I almost put that on the show script. And I didn't because I was like, well, that's actually a bigger conversation about the Patriots handling free agency. Obviously, no one's expecting them to be fantastic this next season, but they are making the right moves in the offseason. And I will credit Kraft, realizing the Mayo thing was a mistake, moving off, getting Vrabel. I think that's a good thing. If Drake May continues to develop, the Patriots could be a team, that is respectable and you have to deal with. And I liked the way May looked last year. So this is good. The Patriots are just making smart GM moves. That's what you need to do.
Well, that's it, man. That's all we got for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Tristan, get us out of here.
All right, that is it. We enjoy being with you every week talking football, and just because the season's over doesn't mean we're going anywhere. Two idiots covering one sport. We will be here bluffing our way through the entire offseason, looking at teams, playing games, doing some deep dives on maybe past teams, NFL history. We've got a lot coming at you, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and tell your friends about it. We will see you guys soon. For Ryan, I'm Tristan. Have a safe week, everybody. Goodbye.